Good morning. This is the Keeping It Real Sunday School class from Cornerstone Baptist Church in Richland, Missouri. I'm Dr. Max Thornsberry, and I'm the teacher, and my wife Brenda will be reading the scriptures this morning out of the Authorized Version, the original King James Version of the Bible. We are basically going to have a history lesson today. The emphasis of our lesson today is how we have other people help us through life. How there are other people in our life. We're not a Lone Ranger Christian, as the Apostle Paul wrote. We are all members one of another. And how significant it is to have friends and associates that help us get through tough times. I've often told my Sunday school class that if you haven't experienced a low in life yet where you cannot even pray, you will. And when that occurs, others have to lift you up. The Apostle Paul said that it's important that we recognize that we need one another, to minister to one another, to pray for one another, to lift one another up. Well, we've got a history lesson today, Brenda, whether you like it or not.
Oh, well, okie dokie then.
And we're going to be talking about Ben-Hur.
Yeah, he's found in Moses
did you
2?
not see the movie Ben-Hur?
Well, of course I've seen the movie Ben-Hur.
My goodness. Well, Lew Wallace, Union general, made a trip to the Holy Land in the 1870s. And when he came back, he wrote the book Ben-Hur. And the book itself is yay thick. Mm-hmm. Quite a fascinating book. And he uses this gentleman whose name is Hur. Hur in Hebrew means white. So evidently he was light-skinned, may even been an albino, I don't know, but he is light-skinned. His name means white. Hur means white. And this would be Ben-Hur's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. And if you haven't seen the movie Ben-Hur, I would highly recommend it. Mm-hmm. About everything you need to know about the New Testament is in Ben-Hur. Also, I can remember as a kid, I'm not sure what year it came out, it'd have to have been the late 50s, when Cecil B. DeMille put out the 10 Commandments. And I can remember Charlton Heston in the role of Moses standing before the Red Sea with his staff grasped in both hands, saying, "Behold, the hand of God!" And the sea parts. Now, I was a little old kid, 5, 6, 7 years old. You think that didn't have an impression on me? Oh, my goodness. Well, we're going to see similar things happen today in this series of verses. I want to remind you that in history, where we're located here, the nation of Israel has crossed the Red Sea. They are now in the wilderness. They've complained to God about water. They complained to God about food. And God has provided them manna and quail. 2 or 3 times He's miraculously provided them water. This is prior to Moses going up on Mount Sinai or Mount Horeb, synonyms for the same mountain, real high mountain, mind you, stuck out there in the middle of the desert, to receive the 10 Commandments. So we're in between the time that manna and quail and supernatural intervention of God has provided water. As they are traveling through the wilderness, the stragglers of their group, and if you saw the movie 10 Commandments, you can see it's a big, long group of people. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of thousands, we think, that came out of Egypt with all the wealth of Egypt given to them. No battle ever fought. As far as we know, this is the very first battle that the Israelites have ever had to fight. They may have had some training as they're going across, as Joshua is kind of acting as Moses' general, but they never fought a battle. They didn't have to fight the Egyptians. God delivered them out of the hand of the Egyptians. Mm-hmm. When Pharaoh was coming down on them as they were crossing the Red Sea, they didn't have to do anything. Behold the hand of God, and the Red Sea folded back in on Pharaoh and his army and destroyed them. The horse and rider fell into the sea.
That's enough.
So kind of gather up here where we are in time. Before the Ten Commandments are given, there's a group of people called the Amalekites. They are known for their domestication of the camels. And they were hit-and-run terrorists, basically, is what they were. And so it was this big, long caravan of people. I'm talking huge now. It'd be like taking the city of Springfield and putting them all on the ground with donkeys and carts and wagons and horses and taking them off across the state of Missouri. This is what this is like. I mean, this is a phenomenal event. And the stragglers, the weak, the sick, the old, the maimed, are kind of at the back end, and they're not well protected. And the Amalekites swoop down on them with these camels. They're riding these camels, flying down through there, and they hit the back end of this huge migration of people and hurt a lot of people, kill people. And that is where we enter the picture here in Exodus 17, 8 through 10.
Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said unto Joshua, Choose us out men, and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in mine hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him, and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill.
Now, Aaron is Moses' brother, older brother actually. And Hur, according to Josephus and other Bible scholars, is Miriam's husband. They are coming to help Moses. They are his assistants. They're his associates. They're the ones that stand beside him. Now, what is this Amalekites? Who are these? They're a nomadic tribe. They are from the tribe of Esau. They are not called Edomites, they're called Amalekites. But it is Esau's grandson is the one that established this nomadic tribe that is idol worshiping, baby sacrificing, evil, terrorist. They have a king, and they're operating as a nomadic tribe in this Sinai Peninsula area, south of where the Israelites are trying to get to in the land of Canaan. And they have attacked them. They've attacked them. Moses, in this instance, at least from the biblical perspective, does not seek God's guidance on what to do with them. He just decides what he's going to do with them. Mm-hmm. Now, this is after the time that they split the nation up into, hundreds and fifties and tens. Jethro, his father-in-law, has helped him establish some sort of management system there. And so he takes out Aaron and Hur, if Hur indeed is his brother-in-law, and they're going to stand up on the hill above the valley where this battle is going to occur. Now, I understand the Israelites' first battle they've ever had. Mm-hmm. He instructs Joshua to take up men prepared for war, and evidently Joshua has trained these men as they've been progressing through the wilderness. They've never fought a battle. Now, the battle they're going to fight is against one of the most formidable terrorist groups in the world at that time. Imagine them sweeping down on you with a bunch of camels going 30 or 40 mile an hour, swinging lances and swords and running over the top of you. That's the kind of picture you need to get in your mind of what they're going to be facing. All right, let's go on, and we're going to look at verses Exodus 17, 11 through 13.
And it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed, and when he let down his hands, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat thereon, and Aaron and Hur held up his hands, the one on one side and the one on the other side, and his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua vanquished Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword.
Now you've got to have a picture of this from this description. Moses is holding up his staff, the rod of God, he's calling it. You could just, no human being can stand there forever like that.
No.
So the battle is ongoing. He finally gets tired. They put a rock so he can sit down, and each one of them hold up that hand holding that rod of God on either side of him until sunset. That'd be a pretty big endeavor in and of itself.
It would.
As long as Moses held up the rod of God, they prevailed in battle. When he got tired and put it down, the Amalekites prevailed in battle. Isn't that interesting? So what does that tell us?
It tells us when you're in a battle, you need some help.
Yeah.
You need some assistance.
It tells you
and
that
it tells you that God
was in charge of that battle.
is in charge, yes.
This is a spiritual battle.
Right.
This is a battle against spiritual entities represented by demonic forces in the Amalekite nation. Now, the founder of the Amalekite nation was a grandson of Esau. He slept with Esau's son's concubine, or he was the son of relationship between Esau's son and a concubine. Although Esau and Jacob, we find in Genesis, did have a little reconciliation, this did not help much because the descendants of the two were at war all the time. When we get into the time of the Judges, you'll find mentioned many times that the Midianites and the Amalekites and the Amorites all joined together to come against Israel. The time of the Judges was about 350 years. It ran from the time of Joshua all the way to Samuel, with Samson and Gideon and all kinds of Deborah and Baruch, all that we would be familiar with, and a lot of them we wouldn't be. There are a lot of different judges. Some good, some bad. And you remember that God raised Gideon up and the 300 warriors to come against the Midianites. Now, do you know who Midian was? Probably not. You don't study your history, and you don't retain it anyway. Midian was the son of Abraham with another wife. And they were jealous of Jacob, obviously. And so they became enemies. Their descendants became enemies. What's really interesting here is it's bound to have traveled to the Amalekites and their king that God had delivered the Israelites from Egypt in a mighty and miraculous way. That maybe it wouldn't be a good idea to attack God's chosen people, knowing what has already happened to the Egyptians.
Well, you'd think, but
when demonic forces are involved, there is no reason. There is no logic.
That's true.
They're the author of confusion, and they are going to result. What did Christ say? The demonic forces, the devil has come but to kill, steal, and destroy. And the end result of this demonic influence on this Amalekite nation is going to be almost their total destruction. Exodus 24, 13 through 15, please.
And Moses rose up and his servant Joshua, and Moses went up into the mount of God. And he said unto the elders, Tarry ye here for us until we come again to you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have any matters to do, let him come unto them. And Moses went up into the mount, and a cloud covered the mount.
This is well depicted in the movie 10 Commandments. Joshua stays at the base of the mountain. Moses goes up into the mountain to meet God. He's given the first, Moses writes the first copy of the 10 Commandments under God's instruction. He comes down, sees them worshiping the golden calf, throws them down and busts them. When he goes back up the second time, God himself writes the 10 Commandments on the tablets with his own hand. That set of tablets go into the Ark of the Covenant and stay there up until it disappeared in Hezekiah's reign. An interesting issue here that we really need to discuss. We got to go forward about 400 years till we get to the time of Saul, 350 years. And Saul is anointed king. Remember, the people of Israel clamored for a king.
Mm-hmm.
All the other nations around them had a king. We want a king. God said, I'm your king. You don't need a king. You get a king, he's going to tax you. He's going to take your sons and put them in his army. He's going to take your daughters and make them his handmaidens. You don't need a king. And they clamored and clamored. And Samuel came to God and he said, they don't respect me. They don't respect me. They won't listen to me. And God tells Samuel, they've not disrespected you. They've disrespected me. Mm-hmm. And eventually God relents. They get Saul. And one of the instructions very early on in Saul's reign was to take his army and go into the Amalekite nation and utterly destroy them. Mm-hmm. And you know why he asked him to utterly destroy them?
To get rid of the evil.
And the reason being that they had attacked the Israelites 400 some years earlier, about 400 some years earlier, and attacked the weaklings. Mm-hmm. You know, they were terrorists. And God said they need to be destroyed. And he said, I want every man, woman, and child, and every livestock. I want none of it for any reason. I want it all destroyed, silver, gold, everything. And what did Saul do?
Well, he almost did it, but he hung on to the best of everything.
Yeah, Samuel says, what is that I hear in the background? Mm-hmm. I hear sheep bleating, cattle lowing, mm-hmm. donkeys braying. What is that? Of course, he knew exactly what it was. Saul says, well, I brought the best back to offer as a sacrifice to God. And remember what Samuel said to him? Obedience is better than sacrifice. And who else did he bring back with him, Brenda?
I can't remember his name.
Agag.
Agag, yeah.
He preserved the king of the Amalekites.
Yeah.
He brought him back. He let him stay in splendor, give him honor. And historians tell us that he gave him some concubine or handmaiden or something, and that he got her pregnant. And Saul, when Samuel finally found out that he had kept Agag, he took Agag out and chopped him up with a sword in little bitty pieces and scattered him. Now, this sounds pretty harsh, you know. God is full of mercy, full of grace. Mercy endureth forever. When it comes to dealing with demonic forces, there is no mercy.
No.
Never will be any mercy. If you don't believe that, go to the book of Revelation and see what happens to these demonic forces. They rebelled against God. They had a war in heaven and they were expelled. These people are demon-worshiping savages, and they had come against the weakest of the Israelite nation as God is moving them through the wilderness with no regard for God, no regard for his chosen people, no regard for Moses. And God said, you remember this, I intend to wipe them off the face of the earth. Also, God can see into the future, because this is going to have some very significant repercussions later on when Nebuchadnezzar finally takes all the people out of the Holy Land in his third attack on Jerusalem. We're up in now the Persian Empire after the Medo-Persians have taken over the Babylonians, and we have all of a sudden we have a little Jewish girl named Esther that is queen to the king of all Persia, Artaxerxes II, in a position of authority, power, and along comes Haman. You know what the Bible says Haman is? An Agite, a descendant of Agag. And what's his purpose? To completely destroy the Jewish nation. Another story, another lesson. But you see that not obeying God in relation to these demonic forces, this is what you get. And these demonic forces have come to do nothing but kill, steal, and destroy. The end result of the Esther story, what you don't really remember, is Haman had 10 sons.
I do remember
and,
that. I remember that from the play Esther.
That is correct.
Could I give a commercial right quick?
Yeah.
If you get an opportunity to go see Esther at the Sight and Sound Theater in Branson, Missouri, do it. it is outstanding.
And it is, and it's a biblically sound all the way through.
It is.
Well, you remember that they came to Esther after all this thing with Haman, and the Jews had whipped up all on those people that tried to destroy them. They were given authority to protect themselves, and they killed all these people in the Persian Empire that were coming against them. But they had these 10 sons of Haman left over.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to Esther, little meek, mild, Jewish girl Esther. They said, "What shall we do with the 10 sons of Haman?" You remember what she said?
Mm-hmm.
Kill them.
Yep.
Destroy them. She is trying to follow through with God's plan to leave nothing of the Amalekite nation. As far as we know, that was the end of the Amalekite nation. What Saul was asked to do back hundreds of years previous and did not do, Esther followed through with and finished.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are we to gather from this lesson, Brenda? There's a tremendous amount of history here, tremendous amount of well, just my goodness. You got so many great-grandfathers of Ben-Hur here. You've got Aaron, who's going to be the high priest, and the tribe of the Levites that's going to be established. You got Moses, who is going to receive the 10 Commandments. You got Moses that's going to be in front of God and see his hind parts and glow like a nuclear reaction for 40 days and 40 nights, have to have a veil put over him, people even talk to him. You have all this history and all this phenomenal, God's hand in all of these things to preserve his people. You think he's still doing that today?
Of course.
We had a lesson here last Sunday, and I think we read the verse in our Sunday school class last week. I think it's Romans 1:17. Turn to that if you would, please.
For in it is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith.
Saul didn't live by faith, did he?
No.
Do you realize that this event that occurred where he kept Agag alive long enough to keep a descendant coming on, and you realize that is when God removed his anointing from Saul? His disobedience in trying to accomplish what God had given him the right to do, completely destroy a demonic terroristic nation, and he didn't do it. God removed his anointing, and Samuel then went to anoint David. Obedience is better than sacrifice. And the Apostle Paul writes in the book of Romans that his desire is that all Israel be saved. His prayer and desire is that all Israel be saved. Should that be our prayer today?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And when we look at what's happening in Israel today, we're reminded of the covenant that God made with Abraham. He who curses Abraham, I will curse, and he who what?
Blesses
Blesses Abraham, I will bless. See you next week.